I've never told you definitely when they didn't. I've said, look, folks, look, retrogrades. Everyone else is saying X, Y, or Z is going to happen, and it would be catastrophic because that's all Francis brings. I'll talk about him in a second. And I said, it's actually not going to, I don't think. It's not a certitude. That's happened several times, and particularly trads were like, what's the deal? Those things tended not to eventuate. This one, I told you 100%. All my sources are saying they're moving forward, and they are. And this proves it. So this is a revolutionary document. This is a LifeSite News article called Vatican's New Synodal Document, calls for female diaconate and radical inclusion. 3 years to the day after this channel put up its first video. The Vatican has unveiled the document to guide the next stage of the Synod on Synodality. Remember, they just extended the synodality period by a full year because they're doing such radical stuff that'll make the changes after Vatican II look like no change at all. This document presents calls for more inclusion of the divorced and remarried, LGBT groups, proposes a female diaconate. The 45-page document was presented at a press conference at the Holy See press office, October the 27th, by the Synod on Synodality team. Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, Relator General of the Synod, wildly pro LGBT cardinal that says Francis agrees with him about LGBT. Of course he is. That's why the St. Gallen Mafia placed him there. Also by Cardinal Mario Gresh, very far left, General Secretary of the Synod of Bishops, Professor Anna Rollins, Father Giacomo Costa, and Monsignor Piero Coda. Now, I'm going to read, there's some amazing stuff in this, even from my perspective, and I've been the one telling you, watch out for female deacons. They're definitely doing. This is agenda item number 2 on the St. Gallen Mafia agenda. There is zero doubt, and it hasn't been for a long time, any doubt, that Francis is here to do a job. It's the job of destruction. I've told you, you really need to turn off anybody who is pope-splaining at this point. I can't explain what their motives are. I'm not going to hazard a guess. But if anyone's pope-splaining today, or even within the last months, turn them off. That doesn't end well. Listening to and being influenced by folks that are lying about this man who is currently running the church to them. And because it's not as destructive of the church as having women leaders, women priests would be. That just destroys the whole church. Women priests destroys the whole church. Paul VI, not a big fan of his. John Paul II, not a big fan of his. Both of them released documents agreeing that destroys the whole church. You can't have women in leadership. Women in leadership equals destruction.
100%. Amen.
Every time. A bunch of barely veiled Catholic socialists who just held a conference at Franciscan, going by the name post-liberal or integralist, it's just Catholic socialism, they probably like this. They celebrate feminism. They want to have more mothers in the workforce, paid maternity leave. This is an aside, of course. They celebrated, some of them, jointly and or severally, celebrated the COVID lockdowns. I think vaccine mandates, I'll have to double check, have celebrated China, Red China, Cardinal Zen prosecuting China, and they want lots of women in the workplace, and they're celebrating the U.S.'s closest brush with communism under FDR, the New Deal. They celebrate the 14th Amendment, whose jurisprudence made it illegal. This proves they're liars. Made it illegal to have establishments of Christianity, government establishments of Christianity in the States, which we actually had in this country. You probably didn't know that. 14th Amendment jurisprudence made that illegal. 14th Amendment jurisprudence made it illegal for the states to illegalize porn, contraception, sodomy, gay marriage, and for a while, abortion until this summer. And these new right, they're just Catholic socialists who just had a big party at Franciscan. I don't know why Franciscan put this on October the 7th. Catholic socialists, barely veiled, this is what today's show is going to be on, they would not bemoan women having a voice, voting essentially socialist in America for the last 70 years. They'd like that. Folks like this, Sohrab Ahmari, loved the New Deal. And he was one of the ones at Franciscan. So that's a whole other show I have to do. The authors noted that the document is not, I guess this is going to be the Pope-splaining segment of the film. This is where they're going to make all of their gains. They noted that the document is not a conclusive document because the process is far from over, nor is it part of the church's magisterium, nor is it the report of a sociological survey. Instead, they say, it remains a theological document in the sense that it is oriented to the service of the church's mission to proclaim Christ dead and risen for the salvation of the world. Writing that the synod has so far produced, quote, abundant fruits, new seeds that promise new growth. What does that mean, new seeds? What do they mean, new growth? They mean it's going to be a wholly different church, as Francis said, of people who feel neglected and excluded. Among those who feel a tension between belonging to the church and the experience of their own effective relationships. Remember in 2014 when they wanted to look at the positive relationships of man-on-man relationships, the positive effects? They just got it there by saying their own effective relationships. The document listed remarried divorcees. Why do they feel neglected? They had 2 complete synods devoted to them, 2014 and 2015, and then they got Amoris Laetitia. It was all for them. Single parents, what can the church do for them? It's already letting them remarry and get the Eucharist as well. People in polygamous marriages are feeling neglected by the church. People doing gangbangs, right? That's what polygamous marriage is. Gangbangs in your marriage. The document listed them as some of the people that need to be treated to in the field hospital. And LGBTQ people.
Just like to bring up the most disgusting trash of people to water down the ones that they actually care about. Like, also we care about psychopathic murderers and cannibals and the like, to make the others, like women diaconates and the LGBT, seem a lot less weird.
Relatedly, another LifeSite article that's recently come up is Vatican Synod website celebrates homosexuality and child adoption by same-sex couples. Am I supposed to keep pretending to be shocked? Such that we know JP2's 3 horrible headings. Well, I don't call him John Paul the Great. Ecumenism, awful. Brought the church to its knees with ecumenism during the JP2 pontificate. Feminism, destroyed everything in its path. He's the one that crafted the term Christian feminism. And death penalty. He's the one that started Francis on his path toward reversing the irreformable teaching of the church on the death penalty. Faithful power in the Catholic American world, like Franciscan. October the 7th, they had this big conference. I was like, can you hear it? One dissenting voice there? And they couldn't. Incidentally, I'll relay a personal story. So one of their friends, who you know on Twitter, Josh Hammer, is doing a talk at a Southern law school. And again, these people are passing themselves off as right-wingers. He told the one of the clubs that he was speaking for at this Southern law school, hey, I'd rather than doing a talk, I'd like to debate someone soon, like next week. And they said, we have the perfect person to debate you. Timothy Gordon. I was getting all ready. I was making prep. I thought it was all, but I was talking through a representative, okay, how much do you guys pay to get ready this quick and all that. But this is Josh Hammer, one of the friends of these new right guys. He's not Catholic, but he's friends with a bunch of these guys like Vermeulen. And he heard my name and he said, no, I'm you know what? Reverse that. I'm not going to do a debate. What they mean, what the new right guys do, they know I've debated Deneen, is when they say we want to debate the old right guys, what they mean is this. They want to debate a legal positivist libertarian, a libertarian that doesn't believe government at any level should be legislating morality, and they can just beat up on him. Like what Sorba Mari did to David French. They wanted David French. They won't debate me or invite me to their conferences. I know this is a big aside. It's two shows mashed into one. But they won't debate me because I'm a guy that's a liberty-loving right-winger. But I'm like, we should be legislating morality at the state level. That's what America was based on. We should have integrated official Christian establishments of government, but at the state level, not at the federal level. They're terrified of me. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. That's why literally, hey, give me anyone to debate. Call a spade a spade. That's why all these guys have me blocked on Twitter, even though I don't even say anything to them. And that's why I think they love Pope Francis secretly, even though you kind of have to pretend you don't. Letting it go much longer than 2,000 years? Jesus knows human nature. So, yes, technically, no man knows the hour, so it could go 10,000 years. But the gospel was relatively unperverted until about the mid-1800s. School of Tübingen. I'm not talking about little debates that happened at most of the ecumenical councils. The gospel went relatively unperverted for about 1840, 1830 years, maybe a little before. Tübingen. And then all of these Catholic perverts that got into, they get promoted if they're a pervert. They get into the ranks and they're pushing the Tübingen liberal Protestant theology. A lot of that, I don't care what you call me as long as you call me a true Roman Catholic who lived, breathed, bled, and died for his family and for the church. And I want to go to the TLM, and I care about that, and I do hate going to the Novus Ordo, and I have to go because I am not that close to a TLM. All the stuff I always say. This is one reason I never got into studying theology the way I could study Thomistic philosophy. This language is the worst. What does this mean? All the institutions of the church are called to question themselves on how to integrate the synodal impulse into the exercise of their functions and mission, renewing their structures and procedures, or introducing new ones. I don't know what that means. So it's hard to tell who's with who. This is one of the signs of the end times. You don't even know who. I think the folks that are pope-splaining out there are doing it because they think this is what you're supposed to do if you love Jesus. Do you really think the great apostasy, assuming that's what this is, would feel worse than this? It couldn't feel any worse than this.
I couldn't feel possibly any worse.
I couldn't feel any worse about the affairs. People who believe what the Freemasons believe running the Vatican, hold fast. Again, don't be one of these people that bounce from Protestantism to Orthodoxy to Catholicism to Orthodoxy back to Catholicism to trad to where Peter is position. Don't do that. You notice this channel got a lot of flaws, got a lot of blind spots, but there's no bouncing here, right? The only bouncing I ever did was grew up in the church in the 80s and 90s, not believing a word of it. Once I got word, got reason to believe it's really the truth. In my 20s, later 20s, I haven't looked back. And I'm not going to leave for Orthodoxy or Protestantism or back to agnostic atheism. None of that. Just stay put and suffer.